my fellow stream lovers, sovereign thinkers, LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mansion of South Florida, and today's date is Wednesday, June 5th, 2019. So let us begin. Thank you for tuning in, folks. And just started doing another show, and I'm in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Escalates, located at 107 Southwest 2nd Avenue. You hear a train going by within the Embassy district of the city, adjacent with Revolution Live in America's Backyard. Yeah, I just had to do a little quick review on the last episode I've done in reference to Scott Peterson and MDS Commission. I sound like a little bit tired there, a little groggy. I know that's how it is. Apologize for that, but for all you folks who listen, thanks, share and download, all that. I really appreciate it. And all the hats off to the folks too who listen to iHeartRadio. They've been checking out my show and all the other networks as well. Yeah, so that's a big news about, of course, Scott Peterson. And another thing too that came out is in reference that's going on in the war on journalism, the war on the press continues in Australia, to be exact. And this one here came from consortiumnews.com. This one's entitled, "After Assange's Espionage Act Indictment, Police Move Against More Journalists for Publishing Classified Material." Less than 2 months after the arrest of journalist Julian Assange and 2 weeks after his indictment under the Espionage Act, emboldened governments have sent police after journalists who've challenged the state, George Laurier reports. Following the arrest and Espionage Act indictment of Julian Assange, a number of police stations against journalists for publishing classified information and other journalistic activity has heightened fears among mainstream journalists that they could be next. Police in Sydney, Australia, on Wednesday raided the offices of the taxpayers-funded Australian Broadcasting Corporation, copying thousands of files related to a 2017 ABC broadcast that revealed allegations of war crimes by the Australian Special Forces in Afghanistan. 3 Australian federal officers, police officers, and 3 police technicians entered ABC Sydney headquarters with a search warrant that named 2 ABC investigative journalists and the network's news director. The police demand to look through the journalists' emails, ABC reported. David Anderson, the ABC managing director, said it was highly unusual for the national broadcaster to be raided in this way. It's a serious development and raised legitimate concerns over freedom of the press and proper public scrutiny of national security and defense matters, he said. The ABC stands by its journalists, will protect its sources, and continue to report without fear or favor on national security and intelligence issues where there is a clear public interest. John Lyons, ABC's executive director and head investigative journalism, tweeted, "Good for you, Mr. Lyons. Keep it up." Lyons said the federal police were going through dozens of emails with the authority or to delete or change or even change their content. Protagonist Winston Smith's job in Orwell's 1984 was to rewrite news archives. Oh, well, to Oceania. I recall writing ages ago about Australian legislation giving the Australian government power to add, alter, or delete targeted material. Australian psychologist and social critic Lisa Johnston told Consortium News the MSM barely battled in Ireland at the time. Now that power is being wielded against the ABC. Gavin Morris, ABC's news director, said journalism is not a crime. Our journalists do a really difficult job. I'm proud of what they do. They do it in the public's interest, he said. I say to all journalists at the ABC and all journalists across Australia, don't be afraid of the job you do. And there's a tweet on here as well, making that statement from the Lion's Den. And I'll continue on here. Actually, let's read this here. It says, AFP raid, having downloaded 9,214 items, which included the AFP's keywords. ABC techs are now putting all those into a new folder. The ABC and AFP will then go through those items one by one to see whether they fit the terms of the warrant. Marcus Storm, president of Australia's Journalists Union, the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, called the raid disturbing. It should chill the public as well as journalists, he said. These raids are all about intimidating journalists and intimidating whistleblowers so that mistakes made by the government, including potential crimes by the military, remain remain secret, and don't fall into the public domain. Political editor's home raided. On Tuesday morning, in an unrelated case, Canberra police entered the home of the political editor of the Murdoch-owned Daily Telegraph. Journalist Anika Sambathurst opened her door to find 7 AFP officers waiting for her, all because she dared to do her job and keep the nation informed on what its government was doing, the Telegraph said in an editorial. Ironically, Smethurst's article in April 2018 that raised the ire of the government revealed the Departments of Defense and Home Affairs were considering new powers allowing Australians to be monitored for the first time. The Telegraph reported. Her original article included images of top-secret letters between Home Affairs Secretary Mike Pezzullo and Defense Secretary Greg Mulready. French journalists arrested. Assange was arrested in London on April 11th. Police in Paris arrested 2 journalists who were covering Yellow Vest protests on April 20th. One of the journalists, Alexis Kurland, said he was taken into custody after refusing to be searched and to turn his camera over the police at Gare du Nord train station. The largest journalism union in France demanded an explanation from the police. And there is a tweet on this in French. You could translate that. And I'll continue on here. SF police raid journalist home. And on May 10th in San Francisco, police using sledgehammers to break down the door raided the home of Brian Carmody, a freelance journalist, to get him while handcuffed to reveal the source who leaked him a police report into the sudden death of the city's elected public defender. Police took away computers, cameras, mobile phones, and notes. San Francisco's chief police William Scott said initially that Carmody had crossed the line with his report. A public outcry and demands that Scott resign, and the police chief issued an apology. He shouldn't resign. You should indict his ass for being an oath breaker. How pathetic and disgusting what Police Chief William Scott has to say. More of this power-hungry Uncle Tom and your mama sentiment. And I will continue on here. Fear is justified. Where there is no direct connection between Assange's arrest and indictment for possessing and disseminating classified material, at these subsequent police actions, a Western taboo on arresting or prosecuting the press for its work has clearly been weakened. One must ask why Australian police acted on a broadcast produced in 2017 and an article published in April, only after Assange's arrest and prosecution. And it's interesting here, Lisa Johnson had a tweet here that says, I thought governments would wait longer than this to criminalize journalism following Trump's Espionage Act indictment of Assange. But right now, under the 1914 laws, Aussie federal police are raiding ABC offices for covering unlawful killing in Afghanistan. All hail to the war on terror. Within hours of Assange's Espionage Act indictment on May 23rd, major publications and media figures who have harshly treated Assange began lining up in his defense out of special interest concern that the government could apply the same prosecution for them for also routinely publishing classified information. Their fears are beginning to realize. And here's a tweet here. The criminalization and crackdown on national security journalism is spreading like a virus. The Assange predicament is already having effect. Journalists must unite and remember that courage is also contagious. I agree with the WikiLeaks tweet completely. And that's a little site here about the Australian police raided ABC headquarters. So look at this, my friends. A lot of folks are waking up thanks to the maverick-minded individuals out there. The rebels is making it happen. And, of course, the messengers as well. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. I have folks from different political spectrums When it comes to stuff like this, we stand side by side. No ends, ifs, or buts. We stand by principle. We stand by natural born rights of freedom of the press, whether it's the United States, Australia, England, Europe, Asia, doesn't matter, around the world. What happened was you got a lot of folks out there are bought and paid for New World Order stooges, Orwellian saps, Orwellian snowflakes that believe they have more power than you and I combined, than you and I all together, which are completely irrelevant, unacceptable, and treasonous. Those individuals are enemies of freedom, regardless where you live. They hate liberty with a passion. They want us to be numbers, conformist, etc. If you ever watched that movie, like I talk about Metropolis, when you got the folks walking in the shift with their heads down, wearing the same boiler suits, and the folks coming out from the other shift, that's their vision. That is their goal, their destiny. All of us be numbered, owned, and branded. And I say, no way in hell is that going to happen. In due time, it will blow back in their faces when least expected. And what's been happening? The spiritual warfare continues. And many other great journalists out there got killed, murdered by cars getting detonated by the cars, getting shot, and say, oh yeah, the person fell off the steps. It's happening everywhere. It doesn't matter. The United States, Malta, Russia, China, it doesn't matter. Good folks are getting harassed, and we have to stick by them. Support your principles, folks, out there, because yours can be next. I will continue on here, which is from Catlin Jones. Came out here. More police raids as war on journalism escalates worldwide. Now, this probably repeated, but we'll look at this as well. The Australian Federal Police have conducted 2 raids on journalists and seized documents in purportedly unrelated incidents in the span on just 2 days. Yesterday, AFP raided the home of News Corp Australia. Journalist Annika Samhurst seeking information related to her investigative report last year, which exposed the fact that the Australian government has been discussing the possibility of giving itself unprecedented powers to spy on its own citizens. Today, they raided the Sydney headquarters of the Australian Broadcast Corporation, seizing information related to a 2017 investigative report on the possible war crimes committed by the Australian forces in Afghanistan. In a third, also ostensibly unrelated incident, another Australian news reporter disclosed yesterday that the Department of Home Affairs has initiated an investigation of his reporting on a story about asylum seeker boats, which could lead to an AFP criminal case, saying he's being pressured to disclose his source. And this is what John Lyons has to say here. I'm still staggering by the power of this warrant. It allows the AFP to add, copy, delete, or alter material to ABC's computers. All Australians, please think about that. As of this moment, the AFP has the power to delete material in the ABC's computers, Australia 2019. Why has AFP suddenly decided to carry out these 2 raids after the election? Tweeted Australian Sky News political editor David Spears during the Sydney raid. Did new evidence really just emerge in both the Annika Samhurst and ABC story? Why indeed? That's the question. If these raids unconnected, as AFP reportedly says, it's an extraordinary coincidence, tweeted the Conversation chief political correspondent Michelle Grattan, AFP needs to explain ASAP the timing so long after the stories, it can't be that insufficient. Must be some explanation, which makes the unconnected claim even more odd. Odd indeed. It is true that the AFP has formally denied that there was any connection between the 2 raids, and it is in fact difficult to imagine how 2 could be connected apart from the sharing common theme of exposing malfeasance that the government wanted to keep secret. Is it true? If it's true, it is true. They are unconnected. Then what changed? What in the world could have changed to spark this sudden escalation of the Australian government assault on the free press? Because they want to control every single one of you guys as their whore bags, their demonides. All right? Don't be lovey-dovey to the state. They're parasitic vampires. And they're just an example, my friends. Well, as I suggested recently, you don't think in terms of separate individual nations. It's not hard to think at least one thing that's changed. And of course, she did a little tweet on the Assange effect. You can check that out. The criminalization and crackdown on national security journalism is spreading like a virus. WikiLeaks tweeted in a response to the ABC raid, the Assange president is already having effect. Journalists must unite and remember that courage is also contagious. The arrest and espionage charges against Assange was just the beginning, as many in the media, even those who hate Assange, feared, tweeted. Consortium News editor-in-chief George Loria in response to the News Corp raid. The home of a mainstream Australian journalist was raided Wednesday morning by police because of a story she worked on. Shameful news from Australia as the police raid journalists, offices, and homes, tweeted legendary Australian journalist John Pilger. One warrant allows him to add, copy, delete, alter computers, files at the ABC. The assault on Julian Assange was clear warning to all of us. It was only the beginning. If you think about it, it would have been far less disturbing than the alternative if there were a connection between the two raids, because the alternative is vastly more sinister, that the Australian government's attitude toward the free press has changed, and that it has perhaps done so, as Australia has been doing for decades in alignment with the behavior of the rest of the U.S. centralized empire. In an article for Consortium News, which I already told you about, titled After Assange's Espionage Act Indictment, Police Move Against More Journalists for Publishing Classified Material, George Lear reminds us that this is not the first nation within the Western Power Alliance to see such an escalation since the paradigm-shifting imprisonment of Julian Assange in the UK. And you can see that for yourselves, and I will keep that post handy. Police in Paris arrested 2 journalists who were covering Yellow Vest protests on April 20th. Laura Lights. One of the journalists, Alexis Kurland, says he was taken into custody after refusing to be searched and to turn the camera over to the police. Gare du Nord train station, the largest journalism union in France, demanded an explanation from police. And of course, I told you about the Brian Cromartie case, that the raid happened, took the phones and all that. So I will leave that. The death of a city elected public defender. So I'll just continue on here. So we're seeing a pattern already. You can choose to ignore or dismiss it with a pleasant story, or you can acknowledge that we appear to be in the midst of a rapidly escalating shutdown of the free press in the Western world. There does not necessarily have to be any centrally planned conspiracy behind this trend. It can simply be the natural result of an alien empire seeing that, and that's going to need a lot more war, lies, and deception in order to keep from collapsing. And responding accordingly. Once the Assange line was crossed, it could simply have served as a precedent for the other governments within the empire to begin doing things they already wanted to do anyway. And this is what Mrs. Christine Assange has to say. First, they came for Assange. Second, raid by Australian federal police on Australian journalists. Same reason, to intimidate whistleblowers, journalists, from exposing government wrongdoings. This one's exactly like Julian's persecution, to cover up war crimes. And of course, you got here about Peter Corneau, raid underway by AFP police at ABC Sydney office. You can see an officer, Corneau, you can't do that. Yeah, you should just give him a penile microphone, pathetic wank. Julian Assange is a dot in the question mark at the end of a historically important question which we are all being asked right now. That question reads as follows: does humanity wish to create a society that is based on truth and holds powers to account, or does it want the exact opposite? So far, the general consensus answer to that question has been going somewhere along the lines of we're actually fine with the headlong plunge into Orwellian dystopia. Thanks. But as the implications of that answer becomes clearer and clearer, we may yet see some stirrings in other direction before it is too late. Yes, my friends, is what the war on natural rights is about. War on journalism, war on the press, etc. They're going after people, either ones we don't have to agree on or like. Like, I know many people believe Alex Jones got what he deserved, getting shut down on Facebook, Twitter, and all that. And people think that's, I heard it. People think that's okay. When it comes to them, they're the ones be crying like a banshee the most. So it doesn't matter. It's happening worldwide, my friends. They want this to make an Orwellian domain, globally speaking. That's what the order wants. All these investigative journalists are terrorists in their eyes. And people that know me long enough on this show, I've been saying this constantly. And people who are good friends of mine realizes I don't make this stuff up. And the empire is desperate. 9/11 is a 24/7 excuse for everything. And this is just one nefarious example. Support these individuals. That's what they're wigging out on. The state. The Orwellian sympathizers. The apologists. The apple polishers. They're being stripped naked. And that's when it comes to corruption, they'll all be exposed in due time. Folks, all you brothers and sisters out there that are reporters, publishers, investigative journalists, fight for what's right. Whether you're independent or work for these big chains. I've been seeing that now, even with the Herald and the Sentinel, for example. They're giving more creative control. I noticed by their writings, which is very good. Everyone out there, observe responsibly. You can tell if it's fraudulent or not. But the ones who are putting their lives on the line, give them a little love. Share this information to everyone you know. Anything you question, and question everything. Critical thinking is very essential. Alright, so here, next one here. A victim of being censored. No More Fake News by John Rappaport. His site is down, so what I'm going to try to do is try to put a link on his article for on the Dropbox, under Dropbox, and you can pick it up yourselves. And if you want to subscribe, that'd be awesome. Is nomorefakenews.com, and you could collect his information. It says here, the Immortal State. This is what Mr. Rappaport has to say. Most of my readers know that my blog has been taken down for world press for no stated reason. But we are working to restore the blog by other means. You are either reading either because you're already subscribed to my email list, or someone forward this email to you. If you're in the latter category, then the best way to get my daily articles is go to my homepage, nomorefakenews.com, and sign up for the email list. In the upper left corner, you'll get articles in your inbox. Thank you for your support. It says here, the huge central government of every major nation in the world would like to be immortal. It would like to exist for all time. It would like to justify its status and importance by continuing on into an indefinite future. It would like to become so powerful and persistent that no citizen even bothers to imagine an alternative. The current size of government in any big city in the world dwarfs the original 18th century federal government in the United States. And that isn't even considering the various partnerships modern governments enter into with giant corporations and banks. Modern governments help spawn synthetic archetypes, the most prominent of which is good citizen. A person tries to support and obey all the rules and edicts while somehow working to improve government. The archetype exists because of the most important element has been lost: participation. The constitutional design of American government allowed for citizen participation. Certainly, city governments could withstand direct citizen participation. Now we have a delusional participation. People believe they are making a contribution, but somehow The reach and intrusion of government grows like a fungus. The overall solution to every problem seems to be get larger, give birth to new bureaus and ministries and departments and rules and sub-rules. At this rate, it won't be very long before 60-70% of the population works for and draws a paycheck from some office of the government. Very dangerous indeed. This is how modern government becomes the state. It doesn't matter much how you temporarily has control of key positions in government. Sheer size and weight keeping expanding. People's very lives are looked as functions of regulations. Now you have what seems to be the blink of an eye, but is actually a long, slow, protracted blink. A sea of dissatisfied people. You have vegans and vegetarians and anarchists and bicyclists and runners and health freedom activists and petty criminals and lawyers and poverty-stricken philosophers, is disaffected religionists and artists and cyberspace addicts and 100 other categories of people who in their minds and hearts and souls are thinking about rebellion. They are cut off from the ruling force and wave of the state, and they are looking for an out. They are aware that prevailing structure is far too complex and anti-human. This gathering phenomenon of rebels does not go unnoticed. Those with political power settle on a response. More of the same. More inhibiting rules, larger government control. The natives are restless. They must be pacified. They must be entangled. And as a sop, they must be given more free gifts in order to settle them down. Of course, those free gifts are paid for with tax money. Can we say extortion? Absolutely. Does this sound like a winning formula for an immortal state? Sir, believe me, I understand your objection, but the rule is the rule. You think standing on your head in the rain while whenever you have drops out of your pockets and is collected by our officer is senseless and unjust? Yes, I understand. And you believe that while standing on your head, being examined by one of your doctors, who is in touch with 7 other physician specialists involved in your case, is an overwrought procedure, and you further believe that the dozens of ways in which we can identify you by numbers is intrusive and demeaning. Yes, but again, the rule is the rule. If everyone rejected rules they thought were unnecessary, the whole system would eventually collapse and we would have sheer chaos. Is that what you want? I remind you, this phone call is being recorded for training purposes. The individual versus the state is more than a well-worn phrase. Just as organized religion believes it has an exclusive and proprietary pipeline to God, and therefore humans must enlist in its structure, the state actually believes it is granting citizens whatever rights exist, as if rights such as freedom only come into being as a result of the state. Remember the opening sentence of Orwell's 1984? It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. The 13th strike, the power of the state to rearrange reality in any arbitrary configuration, is relentless to impose control on its citizens under the guise of doing good, had reached a point of psychosis. I highly regulated and organized psychosis presented to the public as an illustration of rational mental health. Yep, another journalist been censored, shut down, but now has the email. So, and I recommend everyone go on there, check out his stuff, subscribe, and even order stuff from him. This is how you do it, by fighting the order. Gotta be like cockroaches. They can't terminate us all. That's why people say, oh, I gotta leave the United States. What's going on? I go, there's nowhere to go. It's happening worldwide. Now look what's occurring. I'm not a prophet, but an observer. Everyone out there should do the same. Be proactive in your own avenue, even on a local level. Share this information, learn more, and share with others. Even if you're an activist, don't go one way. Be your own leader. Don't listen to the Pied Piper all the time. If you got to do it, choose them wisely. But always try to enhance yourself as well. That's what I tell folks. And when I mingle with individuals, that's why I do share information. I'm not some hotshot Lord and Savior. I'm involved in some organizations. Yes, I do a lot of networking, and I do appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah,
Many of us have differences, but it's okay. But we have honorable discussions, and that's good because it creates a better, healthier dialogue. So, folks, it's okay to stand up for what's right. Remember, rebels make things a reality. You can read multiple books on it. It's a fact. Stay vigilant, whatever you do. And one more here from the Bob Livingston letter. Brandon Smith wrote, "The next stage of the engineered global economic reset has arrived." I forgot to hit it here. Okay, there it goes. As I said, when discussing the fact that globalists often deliberately engineer economic crisis events, certain questions viably arise. The primary question being, why would the elite ruin a system that has already working in their favor? The answer is in some ways complicated because there are multiple factors that motivate the globalists to do things they do. However, before we get into explanations, we have to understand that this kind of question is rooted in false assumptions, not logic. The first assumption people make is that the current system is the ideal globalist system. It is not even close. When studying globalist literature and white papers from Aldous Huxley's Brave New World to H.G. Wells' book The New World Order and his little-known film Things to Come to mainly P. Hall's collection of writings titled The All-Seeing Eye to Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope to the Club of Rome documents to Gabriel Brzezinski's Between Two Ages to former UN Director Robert Mueller's Good Morning World documents to Harry Kissinger's Assembly of a New World Order to the IMF and UN Agendas 2013 to nearly every document that's published by the Council of Foreign Relations, we see a rather blatant and end goal described. Interesting there, of course. To summarize, for at least the past century, the globalists have been pursuing a tuned one world system that is not covert, but overt. They want conscious public acceptance of a completely centralized global economic system, a single global currency, a one world government, and a one world religion, though that particular issue will require an entirely separate article. Yeah, that is absolutely true on that. To attain such a lofty and ultimately destructive goal, they will have to create continuous cycles of false prosperity, follow a catastrophe, meaning great wars and engineered economic collapse are their primary tools to condition the masses to abandon their natural social and biological inclinations toward individualism and tribalism and embrace a collectivist philosophy. They created the current system as a means to an end. It is not their utopia idea. In fact, the current system was designed to fail. In that failure, the 10 globalist order is meant to be introduced. The Hegelian dialectic described the strategy as problem, reaction, solution. Do you recall 9/11? Kio bono who benefits? This is a reality that many people just don't seem to grasp. Even if they are educated on the existence of the globalist agenda, they think the globalists are trying to protect the system that exists or protect the so-called deep state. But this is a propaganda meme that does not describe the bigger picture. This big picture is at the same time much worse and also more hopeful. The truth is that the old world order of the past century is a sacrificial measure like the booster stage of a rocket to space that falls away and burns up in the atmosphere once it was used. If you don't accept the reality that the globalists to destroy in order to globalists destroy in order to create opportunities for gain, then you will never be able to get a handle on why current events are taking shape. They are. Of course, the public discourse, the elites have learned to temper their language and how they describe their agenda. Public knowledge, or at least general awareness of the New World Order, is growing. And so they are forced to introduce the idea of a vast societal and economic shift in a way that sounds less nefarious and is relatively marketable. They also tend to hit at events or warn about disasters that are about to happen. Disasters they are about to cause. Perhaps this is simply a way to insulate themselves from blame once the suffer starts. The International Monetary Fund began spreading the meme a few years ago as a way to describe a globalist economic crash without actually saying the word crash. Managing Director Christine Lagarde and others started using the phrase global economic reset in reference to a greater centralization of economic and monetary management, all in the wake of a kind of crisis that was left mostly ambiguous.
So you can't be doing anything.
What she was describing was simply another name for the New World Order, but it was one of the first times we had seen a globalist official actually hint that the change or reset would be built on the ashes of the old world system rather than simply built as an extension of it. Lagarde's message was essentially this: collective cooperation will not just be encouraged in the new order, it will be required. Meaning the collective cooperation of all nations toward the same geopolitical and economic framework. If this is not accomplished, great fiscal pain will be felt and spillover will result. Can we say the word conscription? That's how you gotta look at it, folks. They want to conscribe us or force to join in, regardless. Translation: due to the forced interdependency of globalism, crisis in one country could cause a domino effect of crisis in other countries. Therefore, all countries and their economic behavior must be managed by a central authority to prevent blundering governments or rogue central banks from upsetting the balance. I believe the next stage of the economic reset has now begun in 2018 and 2019. In this phase of the globalist created theater, we see the world being torn apart by the non-cooperation that Lagarde and the CFO warned us about in 2015. The trade war is swiftly becoming a world economic war, drawing in multiple nations on either side. This scenario only benefits the globalists, as it provides perfect cover as they initiate a crash of the historically massive everything bubble which they have spent in the last 10 years just for this moment. I'll proceed here as I predicted in my article. World War III will be an economic war, published in April 2018. There's links for it, folks. Please read this. It's really good. Brandon Smith does really great work. The tariff conflict between the U.S. and China has become an excellent catalyst for the global reset. In my article, America Loses When the Trade War Becomes a Currency War, published in June 2018, I stated, one question that needs to be addressed is how long the current trade war will last. Some people claim that economic hostilities will be short-lived, that foreign trading partners will quickly capitulate to the Trump administration's demands, and that any retaliation against tariffs will be merger and inconsequential. If this is the case, the trade war moves quickly, then I would agree. Very little damage will be done to the U.S. economy beyond what has already been done by the Federal Reserve. However, what if it doesn't end quickly? What if the trade war drags on for the rest of Trump's first term? What if it bleeds over into a second term or into the regime of a new president in 2020? It is exactly what I expect to happen. And the reason why I predict this will be the case rests on the opportunities such as drawn-out trade wars will provide for the globalists. The economic world has a very short attention span, but a year ago in the alternative media, the trade war was being treated by Trump's cheerleaders in particular as a novelty. A non-issue would be resolved in a matter of months. Today, those same people are new vocal trade war fans waving their pom-poms and screaming for more as they buy completely into the farce. Mentioning the fact that the trade war is only serving as a distraction so that the globalists can complete their economic reset agenda does not seem to faze them. They usually make one of two arguments. Trump is an anti-globalist that is tearing down the deep state system, and the trade war is part of this 4D chess game, or four-dimensional. Or the globalist doesn't have enough control over the current system to achieve the kind of conspiracy I described here. First, by going by these associations alone, it is clear that Donald Trump has controlled opposition, playing the role of anti-globalist, while at the same time stacking his cabinet with the very same elites he's supposedly at war with. As I have outlined in numerous articles, Trump was bought off in the 1990s, and he was saved from possibly permanent bankruptcy in the 1990s by Rothschild banking agent Wilbur Ross. And I have talked about that in my past episodes too, folks, and you can check it out in the archives. Trump made Ross his Commerce Secretary as soon as he entered the White House, and Ross is one of the key figures in developing trade war. At this point, I have to say that anyone arguing that Trump is playing 4D chess with the banking elites while he is surrounded by them on a daily basis must be clinically insane. Every policy Trump initiated in the past 2 years has served as a smokescreen for the globalist controlled demolition of the economy. As a reset continues in the midst of the trade war, it will be Trump and, by extension, all conservatives that get the blame. Trump is a Pied Piper of doom for conservative movements, which is why I have always said an attempt to impeach Trump before the crash is completed will fail. The globalists like him exactly where he is. Yes, a Pied Piper, a puppet, a patsy. Just like Barack Obama, okay? Just to let you folks know. Second, there is a globalist controlled central bank in almost every nation in the world, including supposedly anti-globalist countries in the East like Russia and China. All these central banks are coordinated through the Bank for International Settlements in Brussels. The globalists covertly dictated the economic policy of nearly the entire planet. They could easily create an economic collapse anytime they wish. That this is a fact. However, what they do not control is how elements of the public will react to a reset agenda. And this is where we find hope. They don't have their new world order yet, which is why they have to resort to elaborate theatrics and psychological operations. Mind control, to be exact, folks. They know that an awake and aware segment of the population could annihilate them tomorrow with the right motivation, and so they continue to distract us with a swarm of other concerns and calamities. The purpose is to convince the masses to focus on all the wrong enemies while ignoring the organized, psychopathic elites as the root of threat to humanity. We are supposed to hate the Russians, or hate the Chinese, or hate the people on the left, or hate the people on the right, and so it goes on. But these conflicts are just symptoms of a deeper disease. The great danger is that the focus on globalists as a virus will fade from public consciousness and conservative circles as a trade war becomes a world war and an economic collapse results in financial pain. The reset is upon us. The narrative of the collapse is being written before our eyes. The end game rests not on the globalists, though, but the proponents of liberty and sovereignty. Either we keep our crosshairs on the true enemy, or we get sucked into the maelstrom and forget who we are and why we are here. If the latter occurs, then the globalist reset will be assured. Nice commentary by Mr. Smith. That's why, my friends, you always got to see things in a bigger picture. How deep does the rabbit hole go? And I have to be very frank. Even a person like myself is still learning. Yes, I'm 50 years old. I've been doing stuff like this for over 25 plus years and learning every day. The more I know, the more I share, and the less I fear. and of course implement it as well. That's why, my friends, all of our natural born rights is inherited by something greater than the state. I don't care what your belief system is, but if you believe that we can be free from all this propaganda, monstrosity, mind control, then you take the initiative on sharing this and be the teacher and the rabbi in the maverick movement. The world don't want this to see. So, what is your stance? You support liberty or tyranny? Period. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us on our social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or maybe something that's interesting I want to check out, whatever you do, please feel free on sharing your correspondence with decorum. In addition, I'll be posting all my footnotes of this episode, including my social media sites, email addresses, on my Spreaker page. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is helpful for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.